Well, hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another amazing segment of Make Our World Your Runway. And as you know, this is the show that interviews the most fascinating individuals from the world of modeling, pageantry, fashion, beauty, and even business. And as always, we have a spectacular guest with me today, and I'd like to read a little bit about her bio, and then we're going to have a great conversation on a lot of things that are of the same interest that I have. And she happens to be a full-time family therapist and social worker, and she holds the title of Miss Florida Reporter Lifetime with interviews on her YouTube channel. And she is also the vice president of Waymaker Global Ministry and co-host of a TV show called Women Empowering Women with Jackie and Dedra. And with her passion for people and love of life, and I can verify that, she desires to have a career in entertainment as well as continuing to provide services to her community and inspiring others. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Dedra Veronica to Make Our World Your Runway.
Yay.
Well, welcome, Dedra.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. It's always our pleasure. Well, you've got quite an impressive resume.
Thank you.
Now, one thing that hit me here is, well, everything that you do, you would still like to have a career in entertainment.
Yes.
Why is that?
That was my dream job as a child, to be an actress, singer, dancer. So I grew up in acting class, dancing class, and I just wanted to do that. And I still want to do that. So I kind of dabble in it a little bit in entertainment. Right now I'm focusing on my therapy, but still I want to definitely be in movies one day and be in entertainment.
Nothing wrong with that, and I was talking to a very good friend of mine who happens to, we've had him on the show too, who does host my pageant every year, Lamont Easter. And I asked him about that because he's a veteran actor. And I said, Lamont, if someone wants to get into the entertainment industry today, whether it's acting, singing, or dancing, but especially acting because that's what he does, I said, what are the requirements? And you know what he told me? He said, believe it or not, the industry has changed. There really is not that many requirements out there. He said, because you never know what they're looking for. He said, look, you don't have to look like and it was so funny the way he said it. He says, you don't have to look like a Bridget Bardot, he said, to get a part, unless they're looking for something like that. He said, today they're actually looking for average people, okay? Just, they may go into, he says, believe it or not, they may go into a supermarket and say, pick somebody from there and want them for a part. So he said, what you might want to do, he said, is go to an agency, get a resume, go visit them, he said, and just apply for almost anything that they have coming out because you never know, okay, who they're going to pick, he said, for that part. And, I can attest to that. One time when I was doing some acting, I went for an audition for Prudential Insurance. And it was myself. They called 5 of us at a time. And it was about 5 of us that went in there. And the producer looked at us and he says, well, I want to see the one on the end and, the one in the middle. He said, the rest can go. So we walked out and we figured, we didn't get the part, okay? If he wanted to see the other 2, that's who he was interested in. Well, we found out he wasn't sure about the other 2. And the 3 of us that left, by the time I got home, my agent was calling me and they said, you're going to be in the commercial. I said, wait a minute. I said, the producer asked us to leave. He said, he just took one look at you and said, that's what I'm looking for. So you never, ever know. So my hat's off to you. Definitely, if you want to get back into the entertainment industry, go for it.
And it's so true how you say things have changed because nowadays people can film right from their house.
Exactly.
So I'm actually a part of something. It's in post-production, and we film in our own household, like on our own time, and we send in the video. So that should be coming out hopefully next year. I'll be having a little part in a movie.
Oh, that's great. And it's funny you should say that because one of my former title holders, she was my supermodel. What she's done, she's doing the exact same thing. She's doing a lot of her own filming and sending it off to different agencies, and she's developed these different characters. Like she's got one character that's Lila, a character that's under another name, and they all get coached by her, Melina. So there's 3 different characters, but they're like answering to her. So it's a very, very different concept, and things definitely have changed. It's the same thing in the cosmetic industry. I was in that industry for 30 years. And if you walk into a cosmetic department today, it's not like it was 10 or even 15 years ago. It's all kiosk, and that's because Sephora kind of started that. And it's just very different. They don't do things the norm, okay? And there's so many, when you go into like a Sephora store, there's so many consultants. It's not like years ago you went to a counter, there was one or two consultants that really knew the product. Now it's like, what I call it, free-for-all. So when I walk in there, they say, do you need any help? No, I know what I'm looking for. That's because I was in that industry. But it is interesting that you say that, so great. So we'll hope to see you in a movie next year.
Yes, I'm going to star in one day.
There we go. So we'll be able to say on our next show, Dedra Veronica is a star. Well, you are a star anyway. So, but you do a lot with women's empowerment, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so my mom also, we film our own TV show, like right in our living room.
Great.
It's on a network called Preach the Word Network. You can find it like on Roku, and they have their own website called preachtheWordNetwork.org, and they also have an app. So our show is Sundays at 2 p.m. So it's basically us empowering women. It's faith-based, so my mom and I are both ordained ministers, so we come and we bring biblical, like faith-based information to women to empower them to live strong, powerful lives and to encourage them to keep going no matter what they're going through. You got to keep going because you never know what's at the end of the struggle that you're dealing with.
Exactly. It's true. You have to keep going no matter what happens in life. And you just said that, empowerment. And that's a very big thing that is going on today is women's empowerment. You see a lot of women's groups have emerged, okay? And, we do that here. We have the 100 Successful Women in Business, which I happen to be a recipient. As a matter of fact, we're doing a fundraiser for Miss International World next Sunday. And one of the things I'm doing is book signing. Okay, I'm going to sign that book. So, but it's not only my story in there. It's stories of a lot of different women. And when you read these stories, you actually find out that they came from such humble beginnings, okay, and worked themselves up to being amazing entrepreneurs and also doing wonderful things in community service. It's unbelievable. In fact, there's an organization, I watch the news every morning, and I watch MSNBC Morning Joe. And his wife, Mika, who's on there, has an organization called 50 Over 50. And it is powered by Forbes magazine. And they had a woman last year that they honored, and she flew all the way to Dubai. She was 90 years old. I couldn't believe it. She said she had retired when she was 65, but she hated it. She was a seamstress. She went back to becoming a seamstress at 90 years old and made $1 million. When I heard that story, I said, wait a minute. Now I know there's hope. I said, $1 million and 90 years old? Unbelievable, okay? I just saw an article, okay? It actually was a documentary on television about these women. They called them Rosie Riveters, that during World War II, they actually were the construction women that worked in the factories, even worked they worked on the destroyers, put them together. But here they were, 90, 95, 96. One of them was 100. They were honored in Washington getting a medal. And there they were dancing in the middle of the street in Washington. I said, now I know there's hope. I said, if they could, and at that age, if they're still that active, I'm saying, well, I got about another 30 some odd years to go to get to where they are. Why not? Right? So it's unbelievable how far that women have come today.
Yes, and we're still fighting for certain things, and women are just very powerful. There's so many things that we do behind the scenes, and it's good to uplift one another and encourage each other.
It is. It's very encouraging, and that's what I love about all these different women's group. And when I was just talking about the 100 Successful Women in Business, which Maria started, she did volume 2 in England 2 years ago, and it was amazing. There was women from around the world. We did a magnificent fashion show. We took a tour of London, England. It was just a beautiful event. And to see all these women from all different walks of life, okay? And again, not everybody's story was, quote, Cinderella, okay? It was so totally different to see that, to hear the stories of these women and to see it published in a book, okay? And believe it or not, it happens to be a bestseller. Because when I went on Amazon the other day and tried to buy like 20 or 30 of them, they said, no, there's only 4 left. I said, Well, people are reading my story somewhere around the world. But it's great to hear that, because now you know that people are picking up this book and reading it.
And it's so cool to go to that event as well. I went to the event a few years ago in Pembroke Pines.
Right, you were there, exactly.
Yeah, and I met like a beautiful girl. She was Miss Cuba Intercontinental 2018.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
yes.
I remember interviewing her, and she was saying she's getting her master's and she's going to be a lawyer. And I'm just looking at her like so inspired by that, and that actually had me go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
So just going to that event, seeing a woman being very confident and saying she's going to do this and she's going to contribute to the world had me go back to school and get a title as well, get my Miss Florida Reporter Lifetime title. And I was thinking it was because I met her. I went to that event, I met her, and I was really inspired by her, and all the women that were there that I interviewed were awesome. But just that little inspiration from that one person at that event had me do something greater with my life.
Exactly. And you just brought up a very good point. And another point that I'm going to bring up, I was on a podcast Monday night from Beauty Queens Galore, and that was the pageant source. And we talked about that. And you just hit a point. We talked about the fact that so many people out there are very misconstrued about the world of pageantry. They think that women just get on a stage and they're in there in activewear, or they're in there with a swimwear, and they parade around in gowns, they get crowned, and that's it. They don't understand that a lot of these women get in to pageantry because they further their lives. And with a title, sometimes you can do that. You walk in a room and you want to do community service. I mean, I've had my girls go to fashion shows that they're not even in, and at the end of the night, they're asking them with their crown and sash to walk a runway. But because we're opening doors. It brings me back to 1997 when I was competing at the Mrs. U.S. Globe pageant in California. And Dawn Foley had actually won that title. And I'll never forget the story she told. She had gone for a job, and they didn't hire her. And she had all the qualifications that they were looking for. When she won the title of Mrs. U.S. Globe, she went back to the same company because they were looking for people again. They hired her. And she said, why the first time did you not hire me? Same job, same requirements, but now you hired me. They said, because of that title. Because they saw something on a functional resume, that she did something more with her life. And back then in 1997, women's groups were still not that powerful. I mean, it had come a long way, but not like today. And I never forgot that story. And see, you just mentioned you met this girl at the show in Pembroke Pines, and she inspired you to do something. Okay, and that's what it's all about. Okay, women's empowerment. This fundraiser we're doing next Sunday is all about to raise funds for a women's empowerment retreat. Okay, so pageantry is a great opportunity for women to get their word out there.
Yeah, because they see the title and the crown, they're so interested in you. They come up to you and say, what do you do? What's your title about? And that's your chance to tell them what you're doing, who you are. And I've seen it, little girls, they look at the crown and the sash and they're so like mesmerized by it.
Oh yeah, I mean, even the little ones, okay? We have a little Miss International World. And she puts that crown and that banner on. She's so sassy. She gets out there and she's like, she just dances around, okay? But she really is adorable. And you're right. It just does something. It inspires the women to go out and do more. And when it was very cold, our Miss International World Global, Scalp Pierre, when we had the cold snap come in January, she actually gathered toothbrushes and toothpaste and blankets and pillows, and she went around to all the homeless people and even into the shelters to give these things, because she said, I just, it's so cold. I can't see these people suffering like that. So that's a platform. We worked with last year, we do a big fundraiser ourselves, and it's through Pageant Planet, and we do what's called the People's Choice Awards, where we put the pictures up of all the girls, and their family and friends can go in there, and it's $1 a vote, okay? My ladies last year raised over $14,000. Okay, I mean, at the end, I was seeing credit cards coming through for 400, 500. But we always pick a charity, and we did Global Citizens. And what was great about Global Citizens, because that was all about climate change. And a few of the girls that came in and had a platform, that was about climate change. So it was great, and we were out of that. We were able to donate money. So, but we've done St. Jude's, we've done the Boys Club, we've done a lot of things, and we tell the girls to have a platform because at least that helps them, to talk about something because we gear a lot of our Q&A on platforms and things that they want to do. All right. So you're right about that. It does give them an incentive to go on, and I'm so glad that you got the incentive for that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So isn't it funny because several years ago you interviewed me, and now we're on the other side of the roll. I'm actually interviewing you.
Yes. So that was nice. We met in Boca at Meisner.
Right. That's right, and that's how you interview. And that was a great show. You still have that show, or?
I have the channel. Yeah, I've been focusing more on school and more on like you mentioned, I'm a family therapist, so that takes up most of my time. So I really wanted to focus on that because it's a completely different career, and you have to really be knowledgeable and give yourself a lot of time to grow in that field. So I'm really kind of taking some time to just do that. I've only been doing it for about 8 months. I just graduated, so I'm just now saying, okay, I'm getting better at this. I'm good at this, and I really enjoy it, and I see the growth I've had, so I want to continue with that. But my channel's still there. I have a bunch of videos. I had a monthly radio show.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, it's all still on Dedra Veronica on YouTube.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. Well, tell us, there's so many therapists out there, and you're becoming a family therapist, and it's more like a social worker. So tell us about that, because so many people out there need social workers or therapists, and there's all different categories. And I'm just, with my mother right now, I'm just learning about that. So explain exactly what you do.
Yes, so I went to school for social work. So I have a master's of social work. And with that, you learn a lot of therapeutic tools. You also have to know about drug addictions and certain things like that, and know about medications and different therapeutic tools to help individuals or families, couples, teens. So you have to really be knowledgeable about the whole life process, even with toddlers, middle adulthood, young adulthood, later adulthood. So social workers have to be generalized in a bunch of subjects.
Yeah, I would imagine they do. And do you ever, in doing that type of work, social worker, do you ever encounter anybody that's really got mental health problems?
Of course, all the time. A lot of the kids are diagnosed with ADHD. So that's like the biggest thing. And some do have drug addiction. And what I do is called MST. It's multi-systemic therapy. So I am a family therapist. We work with the caregiver who has a child between the ages of 10 and 17 who have deviant behaviors. Maybe they are smoking, marijuana with their friends. They have negative peers. Maybe they're skipping school. There's a lot of truancy. Kids don't want to go to school these days. Maybe they're cursing a lot at home, fighting the parent. So we come in and we, assess what's going on. We help the parent with structure, with some rules and consequences, and then we get involved in the child's life. What's going on with them, their family, their community, the school. So I'm pretty much really like in the family, and it's only 3 to 5 months, so it's short term. So we come in, it's very intense. We meet twice a week for 2 hours, and then we leave when we believe the parent can handle it. Yeah. So that's what I do right now.
Wow, but no, that's great work that you do that, because again, that this mental health issue. I mean, look at the girl that had won Miss USA a couple of years ago. She was a journalist. She was working for NBC, and her family didn't even know that she suffered from mental health. And she went. They said she was living in a beautiful apartment in New York City, and she went up to the balcony that day, and she jumped off. And I was like, this woman had everything to live for, but you don't know. And it brings me back. It just goes to show how a little crazy I am. It brings me back to a time when my dad had taken very, very ill. And my mother was not sure, because he needed like 100% care at the time. And my mother was not sure because she had to donate a lot of time to him, and she tried to donate time to me. And I was in high school, and I was just going into my junior year of high school. And 16 and 17, when you've got a parent that's very ill. And what happened was, my father had gotten hurt, and a few years later, he developed a blood clot on his brain, and he had to go to brain surgery. Now, brain surgery back then was not like it was today. and it was a long haul. He did come back 100%, but it was a very long haul. So my mother wasn't sure how that was going to hit me, and if I was going to run into problems where, alcohol, drugs, or whatever. But I was, like they said, I was always a little on the crazy side. And I said, well, we're going to get through this, and there's going to be a better way of life. So what I did to get myself out of this. I don't suggest anybody doing this, but this is what I did. Got a few of my friends, and I took the bus to New York City on a Saturday evening. And I heard of this restaurant called the Top of the Sixes, which was supposed to be one of the most elite restaurants in New York City, and it was. Well, I went up there with a few of my friends, and I saw people sitting at the table. And believe it or not, it's where the rich hobnobbed, okay? Not that I'm being a snob, but that's where they hung out. Mm-hmm. And I saw this, and I said, okay, that's my goal. I'm not going to let any of this get me down, because this is where I'm going to be. So I left New York City that night. My mother said to me the next day, she said, you got a whole different look on life. I said, oh, yes. I said, none of this is going to get us down, okay? And I wound up getting a scholarship to the Juilliard Academy of Music, okay? I went there and I studied the opera, okay? I got the master's in operatic studies, and the rest was history. I set a goal, and I laugh at this today. I said, by the time I was 40 years old, I was going to own a Cadillac. That was always my dream car. Well, I owned a brand new Lincoln at 40 years old. So what I did, and they always said if a lot of people looked at it that way, I took the problems we were having and my father's illness as actually a way to motivate me to say, okay, I'm here today. Where am I going to be tomorrow? I turned it totally around. And within 1 year, my father pretty much came back to himself. And when he saw that I continued singing, and when I graduated high school, and it was always funny, the night I graduated high school, my father looked at me, I said, Dad, no, my diploma's, I said, it's in there, it's in that envelope. But not a lot of people would do what I had done, okay? They would have drew in to themselves, okay, and wanted to go the opposite way, because sometimes alcohol and drugs was a way to escape. Not that I don't think people did it intentionally, but it was a way to forget something. No, I went just the opposite. Okay, I said, okay, all right. I might be a poor lady today, but I'm not going to be one tomorrow. So I took the same thing when I had my hip operated on a few years ago, and I had to work with the therapist. And they said, we're going to get you up walking. I said, really? I said, look at the wall. That's what's going to get me up walking. And they said, that's a pair of like 5-inch heels on the wall. I said, that's it. That's my motivation. I'm going to look at that picture every day, and I'm going to walk. And you know what? I did. I had a walker for 1 week, a cane for 1 week. After that, I walked. 2 months later, I was in a small heel. Wow. So I probably could get out there and be an inspiration to people, because I always say, no matter how bad something is, there's always that shining light that's going to come through, okay? But when I went to school, they had a new ruling about, okay, you had to be 5 by September the 5th, or otherwise you couldn't start school. And my birthday was in November. So they had me tested at Rutgers University. They had this professor, and he came out and he told my mother, he said, you got a good thing, but you also have a problem. My mother said, what's that? He says, well, this one here is just about testing on a genius level. Now I understand why my mother and father were always on top of me, she figured she could be crazy. So I never was. And the fact that I was an only child, a lot of people used to say, "Oh, she's going to be spoiled." This, that. No, I was very, believe it or not, as funny as I was, or I always say as crazy as I was up here, always thinking about things, I was kind of subdued. I was very quiet. Because you know what? I didn't have any brothers and sisters, so I used to say, oh, I have to know how to amuse myself. So I was always reading books. You'd find me in the library. I liked school. So you would think that I would have gone, like my husband used to say, you'd go like Leonard Skinner. No, I went the straight and narrow path.
But it seems like you knew there was something great in you, and you brought that out. You had that motivation inside of you And so that's what I try to help these kids and the parents with, to get that motivation and like, who do you want to be in life? What do you want to do? Because even though you're 12, you're 13, if you're skipping school, if you're doing drugs, like that's all gonna, affect your life. So to inspire them and get them to be motivated, that's what I get to do.
Exactly. And I did a couple of wild things too. Now, here's another thing. You're going to laugh at this. Okay, Alice Cooper came out with a song right when I was in high school in the 70s called School's Out Forever. Now, I was, believe it or not, I was an A student, all right? And I was on the cheerleading squad. And I said, this song we're going to use, I said, we're going to do the dance routine to this. Well, the teachers were hysterical. They said, we can't believe you love that song. They said, you're an A student, School's Out Forever. I said, it's the song. I said, but it was ironic because here I was an A student. Yeah, I cut class a few times, okay, but I really never skipped school because I just loved school. And meanwhile, I liked the song about school's out forever and not wanting to go to school. So they couldn't figure that analogy. But that was the other side of me, okay? The other side of me was like, yeah, okay, I might want to do this, but I knew right from wrong. Mm-hmm. So, but to think here's an A student singing School's Out Forever. And they all laughed at that. The teachers just looked at me and said, you sure you only like this song because of the music? I said, yeah.
It's probably catchy.
I said, it was very catchy. I said, I'm just using it in the cheerleading dance squad. I said, that's all. I said, well, you guys think I'm going to quit school? They said, no, but it was just ironic to them, But you're right, because you have to, with what you're doing, you have to give people motivation to want to do something.
Yes, definitely. And we use incentives a lot. So we have a behavioral contract. If they do what they're supposed to do, they get a reward.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I did something like that once. I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, what do I get on the other end? Mm-hmm. I used to tell them that in school. All right, you want me to do this? What's on the other side? Your education. I said, gotta have a little more than that. But no, I have to admit, being in Hackensack High School was great. I loved it, and I didn't know the night, because I was a singer, okay, and I was in the a cappella choir. I didn't know the one night that when I went out to sing, that people from the Reader's Digest were sitting in the audience. I didn't know that. That's how I got the scholarship, because they sponsored the scholarship program. And when they heard me sing and I did the solo, I didn't think anything of it. They said, well, there's people out in the audience. I said, well, there's always people out in the audience. Didn't know it was from the Reader's Digest. Mm-hmm. And when they were giving the scholarship awards to the seniors, they had right before graduation, and they announced my name. I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And that's when they said, now you know why we said there were people out in the audience? I said, now I get it. I said, I get that. And I think the biggest highlight that I had in high school, and probably in my singing career, was President Nixon decided to come to Hackensack High School. He was doing a campaign stop, and he came to Hackensack High School because California and New York always supposedly had the best education programs as far as public schools. Hackensack came, from number 20 up to number 3 in a matter of a year. He said, what is going on down there? He said, the education program seems to be phenomenal. He said, I have to go to that high school, and I'm going to make it one of my campaign stops. So I get approached. They said, do you want to sing the national anthem that night? I said, wait a minute. I said, in front of the President of the United States. I said, well, there's going to be a lot of celebrities in this. I got to think this one. So I thought about it, and I said, well, why not? I said, I got nothing to lose. So I sang the national anthem. And President Nixon just came up to me after that, and he said, I could not believe that voice. He said, how tall are you? I said, 5'4". He said, that little thing came that powerful voice. I said, yeah. I said, my whole family, I said, was singers. And there were a lot of celebrities, big-time Hollywood celebrities in that audience that night and coming up to me. And that's what started my musical career. Okay, so it was an honor to sing for President Nixon. Okay, so that's one I'll always take with me. But anyway, dear, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to have certain gifts and talents and then to use them to help other people and inspire other people. There's different things I'm doing, whether that's being a social worker, a therapist, doing reporting, wanting to do acting, whatever it is. I have my whole life to, contribute to the world and inspire others. So I definitely want to encourage anyone out there, use your gifts, use your talents. You never know what it can lead to, like you singing and then President Nixon, like that's awesome. So just continue, get up every day, get some motivation, and keep going. Use your gifts and talents.
Exactly. Well, you know what, Dedra? It's been a pleasure to have you in the studio today. We're also proud of you. I mean, you're doing a great job. Keep it up, and you're right. You never know who you're going to inspire. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you did get those final words. It's all about inspiring people to do their best, bring out their best. And once again, it was an honor and a pleasure to have Dedra Veronica in the studio and Make Our World Your Runway. And as always, we tell you to stay tuned because every week we have a fascinating guest, whether we're in the studio or on location. Remember to tune in to Make Our World Your Runway. Subscribe to the Global Trade Chamber YouTube channel so that you can see this show and also success stories. So thank you again for joining in. We'll see you next time.